Welcome to the Startup Operator podcast. I'm Roshan Cariappa. There's a huge section of India that isn't able to access credit or other financial services as conveniently as we do in cities. And that's why financial inclusion is so important as a lever for growth in India. Spicemoney is solving this through a very innovative way by transforming neighbourhood kirana shops into fully functional banks and ATMs. Dilip Modi has been an entrepreneur for over 25 years. And in this current avatar as founder of Spicemoney, he's solving for the last mile, as he did before with Spice Telecom, and also pioneering rural fintech in India. In this episode, we spoke about the various nuances of operating in the space, how digitization has impacted rural and semi-urban India, and why more entrepreneurs should solve these problems. It's not often that you speak to someone who has seen the journey of a zero to a billion up close, and certainly not someone as passionate and articulate as Dilip. So this was a fantastic episode, and I'm sure you'll like it. Hi, Dilip. Welcome to the Startup Operator podcast. Thank you so much for making the time.
Hi, Roshan. Great to be here.
Yeah, delighted to speak with you. I think you're working on one of the most important levers for India's growth today, which is financial inclusion. All of us, living in cities, take it for granted that we can access money, we can access a wide variety of financial instruments almost whenever we need it, right? And it's something that a billion people living in rural and semi-urban areas still struggle with. So I thought a good place for us to start would be there, right? So could you talk to us about the importance of financial inclusion and why it is so critical for the Indian economy?
So as you said, Roshan, out of the 1.3 billion people, a billion people are living in rural India. And I think, for our country to grow and move towards becoming over a $5 trillion economy, it will not happen without rural India significantly contributing towards it. And with one of the world's largest populations residing in rural India, I think as an economy, we have to grow. We have to see how the rural economy takes a lead in our country growing from an overall GDP point of view. And when we look at economic growth indicators, I think financial inclusion or financial empowerment is at the bedrock of economic growth. And so you've seen over the last 5-6 years how the government has worked diligently to get everyone to open a bank account. We've all heard about the JAM Trinity, Jan Dhan, Aadhaar Mobile, a billion people with a Jan Dhan account, a billion people with Aadhaar identity, and a billion people with mobile connectivity. And the real idea of bringing these three pieces together is to drive financial inclusion. So even in a period like the pandemic, the very fact that the government could push significant subsidies into the bank accounts of people in rural India, which allowed them to continue their daily livelihoods, is an indication of how critical it is, not just for the economic growth of the country, but also for the social and health fabric of the country. So I would say it is fundamental to the growth of any economy. And with us, in our case, I think it's fundamental pillar for our future growth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You mentioned the JAM Trinity, and I think that is such an important innovation, right? The rapid digitization that has happened in India has truly transformed many aspects of rural life, right? And you have observed this impact of digitization up close. Could you talk a little more about, how rural India has been impacted by this digitization?
So it's amazing, Roshan, you started by comparing us sitting in big cities. How do we view life in rural India? I think one big thing with the JAM Trinity that's happened is that people in rural India have all got an Aadhaar biometric identity, which means that they can identify themselves using Aadhaar. And I think that's been the biggest point of empowerment, when you can identify yourself. And I think now with Aadhaar progressively getting feeded into people's bank accounts, I think it's becoming a great driver for digital adoption. So what is happening is, when we think of digital payments in urban India, we all know about UPI, right? Unified Payments Interface. Now, UPI is all about your mobile number being seeded into your bank account. What UPI is for urban India, Aadhaar Pay is for rural India, because there everyone's Aadhaar is getting seeded into their bank account. So now, just with your Aadhaar identity, people are able to transact digitally, right? So I think that is what the big transformation that's all set to happen in rural India, where using your biometric identity, not even your mobile, right? You can identify yourself, you can do financial transactions. And I think, Aadhaar is turning out to be a great platform for authentication. And I'm seeing UPI also progressively grow in rural India going forward as the payments layer. We are running multiple pilots, to figure out how to take UPI to the masses. But effectively, I think Aadhaar payments have definitely enabled the first step towards digitization of rural financial economy. And we at Spice Money are playing our role in ensuring that we can digitize the whole financial inclusion journey of rural India.
Right. And, it's a very non-trivial thing, right, to solve for the last mile. And it involves not just, operational excellence. You have to do everything that we already know really, really well, but it also involves innovating on new access and doing things order of magnitudes better, right? So how do you think about this in your business? When you think about rural fintech, when you think about financial inclusion, you could also draw upon your, previous experience with Spice and telecom as well. What are some of the nuances of solving for the last mile?
So I think, Roshan, when I look back at Spice Telecom, vis-a-vis what we are building at Spice Money, there are a lot of parallels. Because when we were building out our mobile telecom business at Spice Telecom, we had to roll out the tower infrastructure deep into semi-urban and rural India as well to drive coverage, right? And every time we used to put a tower in a village, it used to light up because now people got connected, right? Now, when we go with our Spice Money, a Dikari platform into a village, and when an entrepreneur signs up to our platform and downloads our app and starts transacting, again, the village lights up because it's like a bank branch opening up in their village. So I think when you talk about last mile, I think we have to go to the last man standing, deep into the interiors of our country and see how they're getting connected to the formal economy. What telecommunications did was it connected people. And what fintech is doing is it's actually, financially empowering people at the last mile. So I think to me, when we talk about growth, when we talk about technology impacting people at scale, I think in India, we truly have an opportunity to lead in the world, because I think what's happening in India is truly transformational. It's actually like, the revolution that I saw in the mobile telecom industry, where in 25 years, we went from 0 to 1 billion plus mobile users. I think I can see that in the next 10 years, right? We're going to see very fast acceleration of the financial empowerment journey of India. And I think when we look at the last mile, it's all about leveraging technology. So one of the things that we used to say at Spice Telecom, and now what we are building on at Spice Money, is where roads have not reached, mobile phones have reached, right? Where hospitals have not reached, internet access has reached. Where schools have not reached, internet connectivity has reached. So the idea is, how do we now leverage the smartphone and internet connectivity, which is reaching more and more deep into rural India? And we're not talking just 2G, we're talking even 4G connectivity that's going out there, which is high-speed internet. What all we can do in terms of layering services. And when you see a once-in-a-lifetime phenomena like the pandemic, it just goes to show that how technology can really be so important and empowering as a system. So I think to us, in both our journeys at Spice Telecom and Spice Money, we've seen how technology has really played a significant role in solving the last mile problem.
Right. So I think with that background, we could understand a little more about Spice Money, right? Could you talk us through, what the founding journey of Spice Money was, and also some of the common use cases that you're serving at this point?
Yeah. So, Roshan, let me start by saying that, what is the problem that Spice Money started with in terms of solving for? So, like I said, since 2014 to about 2019, over 400 million bank accounts under the Jan Dhan scheme got opened by the government of India, right? Which was basically that, everyone should have access to a bank account. Now, what happened is, while a lot of bank accounts got opened up, and most of them were in semi-urban and rural India, because the urban India already had bank accounts, the banking infrastructure in terms of the last mile bank branches and ATM machines was missing, right? Because that was the brick and mortar infrastructure. So if you look at it, we just had about 200,000 plus ATMs across the country. And if you look at the ATM penetration per population, it's among the lowest in the world, right? So even in rural India, like 22 ATMs per 100,000 population. So even if people got money going into their bank accounts, how do they access their bank account? Because there's no ATM machine or bank branch close to where they live. So the first problem that we at Spice Money set ourselves to solve for is how to bring the ATM and the bank branch close to the doorstep of the consumer deep into rural India. And therefore, we leveraged the Aadhaar payment system technology stack to build a solution, a platform wherein we could sign up merchants and entrepreneurs in semi-urban and rural India to onboard themselves onto our platform. So we built a digital platform, both web and app interface, which was basically targeted towards merchants and entrepreneurs to onboard themselves. And then once they onboard themselves, they can start offering banking and financial services to communities around them. So what happens is we started with the basic use case of ATM. So all of us in big cities are used to seeing these big white label ATM machines, right? Where, they're all lit up across the city and all of that. Now, of course, there's a big cost to rolling out this ATM infrastructure. What Aadhaar did was significantly bring down that cost. So what we now do with Spicemoney, and the first use case we solved for, is that a merchant or an entrepreneur living in semi-urban rural India, running a small shop or a small business, can onboard themselves onto our digital platform. And then either they buy themselves or we give them access to a small biometric machine, right? Now, what starts happening is that any customer then walking into their shop or that they're able to access, they're able to offer them access to their banking services across all banks. So if there's a State Bank of India customer in a village and he receives subsidy money from the government of India into their account, they can walk close to their Spicemoney merchant, authenticate themselves using Aadhaar, and the money moves from the customer's bank account to the merchant's bank account through our platform at the back end, and the merchant pulls out cash and gives it to the customer. So effectively, the white label ATM machine has got replaced with a human ATM. They can get access to cash, and the bank pays an interchange. We share that margin with the merchant, and so he's making money through every transaction that he's enabling. So it's a win-win-win situation where for the bank, they're able to roll out at a much lower cost an ATM infrastructure, micro ATM infrastructure across the country. For the merchants, they're able to get return on investment and grow their business and grow their income. And for the consumers, they're able to get access to ATM and banking services close to their doorstep. So ATM, micro ATM was the first use case that we started with. And of course, we've layered multiple use cases on the back of it around payments, because once the person is coming there to withdraw cash, he's also coming there to make his payments, right? So electricity bill payments, gas bill, water bill, doing his top up, right? And then also doing deposits. So effectively, we moved from just being an ATM point to an ATM come payments point. And now where we are going towards is becoming more like a banking branch point, right? Where now he can open an account, right? He can get access to credit. He can get access to insurance. He can look at saving products. So effectively, it actually, like I said, when a Spicemoney, and we refer to all our merchants and entrepreneurs who sign up on our platforms as adhikaris. So we refer to them as Spicemoney adhikaris, because we truly believe that digital platforms like the ones we are building have the ability to empower and give people right to lots of things. So for someone to sign up on our platform as a Spicemoney adhikari, he or she is able to deliver all these ATM payment and banking products through our platform. Now, also because ours is a digital platform in which we can integrate services through open APIs, any service that can be digitized, we can integrate onto our platform and offer it to consumers deep into rural India. So from a unit economics point of view, like we brought down cost of delivery of banking services, we can also bring down the cost of delivery of many other services. So, for example, we have also moved into the area of travel. And, we are also enabling the merchant or the entrepreneur to function like a travel agent. So on our platform, we've also enabled a host of travel services by directly integrating with all the operators of airlines, IRCTC, bus operators, hotel operators. So, now that merchant or an entrepreneur is also able to function as a travel agent, right? And help people plan their travel needs. And then, of course, as every industry like healthcare, education, e-commerce is getting digitized, we can enable the same to happen, because now these same merchants can use our platform both for B2B e-commerce as well as B2C, right? And at the end of the day, they can use our platform to buy goods, but they can also use our platform to engage with customers in the space of social commerce. So eventually what's happening is that the merchant is effectively operating like a digital store in which he's able to offer multiple products and services to their consumers and therefore increase their income levels. At the same time, for the consumer, the same merchant with whom they have that trust and relationship, they were able to get access to a host of services. So effectively, it's a transactions-led platform play. And we're very confident that as we get to understand more and more, and as we learn more and more about our customers through their transactions, we can innovate and bring new products to them. So we truly are looking towards our mission of digitally and financially empowering over 10 million merchants deep into rural India to serve over a billion consumers. And we just want someone staying in a village to not have to step out of the village to meet their needs, right? And we can help them get access to all their services right there where they are.
This episode is brought to you by Mulya. You want to move fast? Sure. But without breaking things? Now that's a hard ask. The thing is, once you have some base of users and customers, you just cannot afford to risk quality. So how do the likes of Cred, Swiggy and Curefit, some of India's fastest growing startups, ship at lightning pace and delight their users and customers? Simple, they're working with Mulya as a strategic quality partner. Mulya is India's most talented and passionate community of testers. They've helped prevent thousands of bugs and regression issues. So as a CTO or a product owner, if you want to reduce tech debt, especially while you scale, do check out Mulya.com. I've interviewed Mulya's founder and CEO Pradeep on the podcast earlier, and we spoke about how startups can improve quality while scaling and things to that effect. You should definitely check it out. I'll link to it in the description below. Now back to your regular programming.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think it goes so much beyond just branchless banking. I mean, I'm kind of thinking of this as converting your neighborhood kirana into a mall by itself, like a virtual mall by itself, right? Where people can get any service there. And this whole, I think, access to money payments is just the tip of the spear. And I think, Spicemoney will be a very, very different, 2 or 3 years down the line.
And in fact, Roshan, what we're very excited about is how we are leveraging people and technology together. Because when you think about it, what we're creating is a new generation of digital and financial entrepreneurs across India. We have close to over 700,000 of them today. And what they are doing is, first, they are the early adopters of digital technology, right? Because they are using our app to deliver services. And like you said, they are functioning this kind of digital mall, right there. And because they know the consumers around them, they have this kind of trust between them. They understand the social fabric of that community. They are also able to add to helping us create products which we can bring on the platform to serve customers around them. So I think in our whole journey of digitizing multiple industries across India and with access to smartphones and internet connectivity, I think there's a great opportunity for us to play on both how to provide technology to consumers, which they can use to get, to avail of a lot of services, but also do it through a layer of, intermediaries who can assist them in many ways, right? And can also become a source of information. So when we talk about financial inclusion, right, credit is a big part of it. Credit works on ability to underwrite and ability to collect. And that's where our Spicemoney adhikaris can become a big enabler for large banks to be able to, like we brought down the cost of delivering ATM services, can we bring down the cost of delivering credit? At the same time, make it feasible from a collections and underwriting point of view. So imagine an adhikari living in a village with consumers around them and they're living in that area, right? What is the source of data that they can provide us around potential borrowers, right? In terms of social underwriting and other capabilities. So I think this combination of people and technology can truly be very, very powerful. And I think, people talk about a digital economy. I think rural India, we're talking about a bridgital economy, right? Where, people are playing this role of a bridge in helping people leverage digital to be able to get access to a host of services.
Right. The cost of credit in India is so high, right? And also, I think the proof for borrowing also, I think has to evolve. And something like this where, you have data on transactions and you have these people who are locally staffed would definitely transform that for sure, right? So my follow-up to that was when you're dealing with money, there's a high degree of trust that is required, right? Which is also why I think you see some of the PSU banks, for instance, being popular despite their terrible service and, very bureaucratic setup as such. Now, one way you have solved this is like through employing your local kirana stores and local adhikaris, as you mentioned, right? How do you increase this trust in the ecosystem?
So I think you're absolutely right. When it comes to banking and financial services, trust is the most important thing. And I think the first thing people have to be sure of is that their money is safe. And I think it goes down to multiple things. I think, here's where technology can play a big role, because the platform that we are deploying, we have to make sure that transactions go through seamlessly. One of the big things that we think with people and technology that we have is that as we move to a do-it-yourself digital economy, we are talking about, banks, large banks also roll out these apps, right? Where people can download app and, do a lot of things on the phone themselves. But what happens is when you get stuck, you've done a transaction, it's not worked, who do you go out to help, right? And that's where the Spicemoney Adhikari layer can really help people in going digital. Because right there in their village, they have someone who they can go to if some transaction of theirs gets stuck. And we talk about cash economy moving to a digital economy. Why is it that there's significant cash in circulation still in rural India? It's because they have no option, right? At the end of the day, if the government puts money into their bank account and they withdraw the money, right, then the local ecosystem is all cash driven. What we are doing with the Spicemoney digital Adhikari layer is enabling them to reinvest that cash, put it back into the bank, right? Through micro saving products, through micro investment products. And if they put that cash back, they can get access to credit as well. So the idea is that, how do you help them move that cash into a digital setup where effectively they can engage with their money digitally rather than using cash? So I think there is a great opportunity for us in India to leverage, again, like, the Jam Trinity, to be able to not only bring down cost of credit, but also enable a lot of the cash in circulation to move back into the formal financial economy, right? Where effectively the money moves back into the banks, right? So what we're doing is at our digital Adhikari layer, we're also enabling digital payment acceptance. So now consumers can come there and pay using UPI, right? They can come and pay using Aadhaar. Aadhaar Pay is also a way to pay the merchant. And so the idea is that why withdraw money from your bank account? Why not keep it in your bank account and then transact using your bank account? All of this can create multiple layers of opportunity, not just in terms of credit assessment, but also just us understanding as to how everyone can contribute to growing the economy. So I think there's a great opportunity for us in this whole space, as I see it.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that I am really optimistic about is the fact that, the economy is formalizing, and now there are some real incentives, right? I mean, like convenience and credit to actually formalize, unlike earlier, I mean, where on the contrary of incentives, I mean, you would get some kind of harassment from the tax officials and so on. So now there's actually real incentives to formalize. On that note, I mean, I think the policymakers, the regulators, the government has been extremely proactive on this front, right? I mean, we've recently seen, like, for example, the account aggregators framework that's come in. What has been your experience working with regulators? And if people are listening who are building in fintech, how should one view regulators and how should they work with them?
My experience with the banking regulators been amazingly positive. I think we've got one of the most progressive regulators in the world. And that is where you see when crisis happened, 2008 Lehman happened, before that many other things happened, we as a country did not get impacted. That's because we have a very proactive regulator. But my experience with our regulator is that we have a very innovative regulator. If you look at the Reserve Bank of India, they have this concept of an innovation sandbox, right? And they're constantly encouraging startups to come and participate in the sandbox to build for futuristic solutions. I think this is such a progressive way of thinking. So for all the fintech entrepreneurs listening on this call, I would really encourage them to work with the regulator and institutions like NPCI and others, right? To truly innovate for the masses. Right? And how we can use technology to innovate for the masses. I would say that we have a very progressively thinking regulator who's always looking out for the consumer, but also looking out how to leverage technology to drive what you mentioned around convenience and credit, right? And not just credit, it's about savings and all that. See, one of the big challenges we have, Roshan, as a country, is to drive financial literacy. We are a regulator. They're constantly driving this message of financial literacy. And it's the onus of all of us working in the fintech space to collaborate with the regulator, the banks, the NBFCs, the entire ecosystem, right? To build a very responsible, formal financial sector, right? Where we can educate the consumer, because people specifically in rural India are so used to working in informal financial economy, right? Where you have money lenders and you have cash in circulation and all of that, right? And there's illiteracy and all of that. how do we make sure, and one of the main roles that we see for ourselves at Spice Money is through our Spice Money Adhikaris, how do we drive financial literacy and awareness deep into rural India, right? So people are able to understand and as to what rights they have, how to think about savings, how to think about investments, how to think about insurance, protection, credit. There's a huge job to be done. So to me, I think the regulator is a great partner in this journey. And I feel like the institutions, and there's a lot coming forward, right? Like going forward, you mentioned account aggregator. Right now, we're looking at account aggregator model still more urban focused. I think the future account aggregator for the poor and the unserved or underserved is the next phase of journey, right? How do you capture data? How do you capture information around them? And I think that's where platforms that are building out like ours and others, can help in terms of getting access to data. There's also the whole open credit enablement network initiative, right? Where again, we're talking about borrowers and lenders coming together on a platform. And like what UPI has done for payments, OKID is looking for credit. So I think this entire new, versions of the India stack that are constantly being rolled out is all because we have a very proactive regulator and a very proactive framework of institutions where you have people like Nandan Nilekani who started us on the Aadhaar journey, right? Constantly working and people from the private sector, technology space coming together. So I would say for anyone working in the fintech space, you couldn't be at a better time, at a better place in the market, which is over 1 billion consumers. I would just invite everyone to come and say, let's join hands and solve for multiple challenges that are there. And in the process, really create an impactful journey for ourselves.
Yeah. Right, absolutely. I mean, given that, India has historically high savings and also given how little of those are financialized and so on, right? I mean, with innovations like this, it's going to be a huge leverage going forward for sure. So, all right, enough about, financialization, fintech, all of that stuff. I mean, you've been an entrepreneur for over 25 years. And, I firmly believe that the best way to stay young and positive is to be an entrepreneur, right? Because your life is never a straight line. You're always up and down, right? On each day. So, what are some new tricks that you are learning? What is Dilip 2.0 going to look like for that next leap of growth with Spice Money?
No, Roshan, like you said, being an entrepreneur is not easy. It's a roller coaster ride. And I think for me, every day is a new day. You get to learn every day. And I think for me, I've had the unique opportunity, whether it was telecom or now fintech, is really building out at a time when the space is still young. Like when I was in the mobile journey, right, we used to be thinking about how to do 100 connections a day, right? And why would people use a mobile phone, leave alone that everyone would use a mobile phone? So, for me as an entrepreneur, the exciting part is to be in a journey at the very early stage of how it's happening, right? Like when I talk about rural fintech, it's just the start of this space, right? So I think I've had the unique opportunity to participate in a growing space at a very early stage. What that has enabled me to do is constantly imagine possibility and, what all is possible to do. And I think when you constantly are imagining possibilities and reading possibilities, you come across teams and people and, and you're able to work with a bunch of passionate teams who want to come together and solve problems. And I think to me, I don't know, 25 years is a long time, and I don't know how time flies, but it doesn't feel as long as 25 years sounds, right? It's just like, I still feel like every day is a new day and I'm building out for something to solve for. It's of course, there's always these ups and downs, but one of the things that time has taught me is when tough times come, they also pass. You just have to be very focused on what you're trying to do, focused on the problems you're trying to solve, and believe that as long as you're clear about the journey you're on, it's a matter of time that solutions would emerge, but you stay true to the journey. And I think that is something that I truly believe that if you stay the course, solutions will emerge and people will come and things will happen. And you just have to stay the course. And I think that's something that I've always learned in every journey that I've taken.
Right. Wonderful. So, Dilip, to end the podcast, what do you have coming up in the future? Are you thinking of new product innovation on Spice Money? I mean, we spoke about a bunch earlier, but anything to add on that front? And how are you expanding going into the future?
So, Roshan, we are very excited about the future. I think for us, like I said, we are all about imagining possibilities, what all we can make happen in the rural financial economy. How do we formalize it? How do we digitize it? and what all we can do. So for us right now, we've started more on our payments journey, but as we consolidate the payments trail for rural India for over 1 billion consumers, I think there's an opportunity to build a lot of formal financial products on the back of it. We just announced a partnership with a leading Israeli fintech working in Israel on platforms like P2P lending, and both on the saving investment side as well as the lending side. And we are excited about the next phase of journey in terms of formal financial products around savings, investment, credit, insurance, and how we can work with the ecosystem to drive penetration of each of these products deep into semi-urban and rural India. So I think from just focusing on payments to moving towards formal financial products and more truly becoming the digital banking platform for rural India. And I think that's the journey that we are very excited about over the next few years. And I do believe that there are a lot of developments in the ecosystem, like we spoke about account aggregator, OKIN, UPI itself. Today, we have 500 million smartphones, but just about over 200 million plus UPI users. So I think there's a whole journey to UPI as well. And we at Spicemoney want to play a significant role both on Aadhaar and UPI to drive its penetration into rural India. So I would say we've just about got started, and we're really looking forward to this journey.
Fantastic. That's a wonderful note to end the podcast on, Dilip. And to me, this was like a clarion call for young entrepreneurs listening to the podcast on building for rural India, which I think is a fantastic thing. So thank you so much for inspiring us, Dilip, and wish you all the very best with everything that's coming up.
Roshan, I would again appeal to everyone listening on this call. Please look at look at India, not just from one lens. We are a combination of markets, but if you have an opportunity to empower the lives of 1 billion people, grab the opportunity. It's now for you to pick it up with both hands and run with it. You will not only feel like you're creating impact, but you'll also change your own life and transform your own life in the process. I wish everyone listening on this call all the best, and thank you for having me on this podcast, Roshan. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode, then don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite platform and share this episode with all of your fellow startup operators. Also, follow the Startup Operator on LinkedIn and Twitter for more updates. Stay safe, take care, and see you soon on a brand new episode of the Startup Operator.